Okay, so on to video 2. Let's start with Julia here. Let's see what we got. Okay, so I actually really like your overlapping action right there. Like that really feels nice to sort of roll up and like. So I think the big thing though is I think the steps feel really like the hip shifts are really big. Or more like the hip rotations are really big, but the character keeps landing sort of bent kneed here. It's almost like he's squatting or she's squatting as they're walking. And so that first little part there feels a little like really if it'd start from like right here on, it'll be looking pretty good. I think that the overshoot there is a little fast. And I think you need a little bit more like the foot and the hips get back to that position at the same time. Get that foot there first and then let the hips kind of settle over it. The biggest issue again is sort of this walk up to it. And so we're kind of going over the walk cycle right now so you can see some of that. But you got stuff like the hand goes through the leg there. And the foot is kind of doing similar things again to what some other people's feet were doing on their project, which is you're getting this like flat foot right there across the bottom, and so just playing around with that a little bit to make it read a little bit more organically. So let's see, we're on. I hate when I accidentally open stuff. There we go. So Katie, let's see what your revision looks like here. So overall, this one's looking really good. The only thing I really notice is this first leg shift here. Like again, and we've kind of already talked about this with other people, but this is sort of your weight support right here. Like it's just this whatever's over top of this foot. And so much of the character's body's there, but this foot hasn't made contact yet. So you need to really kind of keep the hips back there behind it. The movement in between, or I'm sorry, keep the hips back here over top of this foot. The movement from here to here just feels a little linear and like a little even timing. So again, we call that floaty. That it's just kind of drifting from one keyframe to the other. And so I think that you just need a little bit more stuff going on in there. So maybe the weight shift over, the character looking down a little bit or something. Or just change the timing, make that not quite as slow right through there. It's actually less up to here. It's more of like right to about here, maybe to there, and then from there it kind of speeds up. And all of this looks really good. You get a little bit of. It's interesting that the character lands toe first there. And to do that, the hips feel like, to me, they need to be a little further forward. But maybe not. It's not bad if they do like that. That just feels a little awkward to me. And so maybe twist the. Maybe not. I don't know. It's just slightly off. I like what you get going on with the hands and most everything. Like you get this little fist that the character makes. This hand here, and specifically in this pose, feels a little too much like it's still back in the bind pose. It's almost always that thumb and sort of the, not getting some of these other smaller digits to sort of roll down a little bit. That almost always kind of is the culprit there. Overall, though, this is actually a really strong piece, so great work on that. Lindsay, let's see what you got here. Okay. So I think the two weight shifts right there at the beginning, I like what you're doing. My only problem with it is that it's a little hard. Like they don't really have any settle time once they hit over each leg. And so it feels like he shift over this leg, but then he immediately shifts back before this foot is even on the ground. So give it just a little bit of hold time there. So like holding over that leg, let this, let the character's right foot get planted, and then you can shift over and do the same thing with this one. So again, like the feet and the hips get there at the same point. You see that? And so the foot should probably get there first, and then the hips get there. The character sort of pushes themselves under, but then they stop right there. So it kind of feels like it hits a wall right there, thunk. And then it moves up and forward a little bit in this twist, and then the character kind of lunges forward, but again, this foot isn't placed yet. So it's kind of like the hips hit that destination at the same time that this foot does. So you need to get the foot there earlier. And then this foot really just stretches out. So I think if you're going to do that, the character needs to roll up on the ball of the foot. That way you get a little bit of a bend in there. And to me, it just feels like that the weight is probably too far forward too early there. So like right here, the character, again, the supporting weight is there, and almost all the character's weight is out here in front of that. And so it will cause the character to tip over. So, and then I think the last thing is you kind of need to get that foot there a little earlier and give you a little bit more time to sort of settle into that pose. So it seems like the big thing on this one is getting your feet underneath you and planted before the character shifts their weight back onto that foot. You're doing a really good job at shifting the weight off the foot that's going to lift up, but you're shifting it back a little too early before the character has the chance to get their other foot placed. So Matt, let's see, Matt Drury. So this is actually looking really good. I think as the character's leg comes up here, I think you could probably push the weight upward in the hips a little bit more and raise that foot up just a little bit more to make it feel almost like they're jumping out of frame. And I maybe even would consider adjusting your camera just a little bit to even get that effect that they're jumping out of frame, because you were getting that feeling that the feet are kind of sticking to the ground right there. Not right there, but like throughout this whole thing. Like you don't want it to look like a soft run. And I think right here I would have that foot like way up higher, like they jumped, I think that, so it's feeling a little bit like the character sticking to the ground there because of that. The other thing is right here from this section through here, like right as he approaches the bar, it feels to me like it may take a little bit too long. Like it may just be like a frame that you need to trim out of there or something. It's almost like this section here just is a little too slow. I mean, we got from here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 before he really like starts to pull himself through here, right? And then the last few things, I think you get a little bit more contact on the bar right there. It's going to be hard to keep it from looking like it's blowing through, but just kind of this like sliding around and the fingers slipping off, just a little bit more contact on there. Overall, kind of nitpicky things, but I think things that would help. Right here, another little nitpicky thing is that sharp angle for the heel. I think probably what I would do is, instead of doing that, try to keep the heel a little bit, let me get my pencil size smaller here. Try to get the heel a little bit more like that, and then get that bend out of the toe instead. Does that make sense? And that way you don't feel like you're breaking the ankle quite so much there. Overall, this one turned out really good though. And so you know what, you may be able to take a frame out of there and out of here somewhere, just to kind of scrunch that down a little bit. And when I say take a frame out, I mean just kind of squash that together a little bit more. It just feels like it needs to be a little bit, like that approach needs to have just a little bit more energy to it. Overall, looking really good though. Great work. Matt Wagner. Let's see what we got here. Come on. My computer's opening stuff slow today. There we go. I'm going to show you something really quick. Let's see if this is helpful. Is it AV controls? Oh, come on. Maybe I'm wrong. I think there's a place somewhere in here where you can adjust your alpha to get a little bit less of this washed out. That's not what I want. Either way, you can also do it in Premiere. Just because you already got the you already got the video set up, but you could open this up in Premiere and just adjust your alpha. Sorry, not your alpha, your gamma, to sort of take some of this brightness down a little bit. And on my monitor, it's not that bad, but I know that was something that we had discussed in class. So I think this is looking pretty good. A couple of things. Not really sure if you had a chance to look at these. So let's just kind of frame by frame it through here. I think you're wanting to look like a baseball slide, and so I think maybe I would keep that foot back there just a little longer, just keep it grounded to make it feel like it's pushing the character forward. Back here, and then really still pushing that, and that way it doesn't feel like everything's kind of just sliding forward there. You want to get that feeling that back leg is pushing it forward. If you want to go ahead and take this bar out for the animation, I think that's fine. I think right now you have the character kind of flip the back, and then the back stays kind of stiff right through there. And so I think you could even exaggerate that a little bit more. And so like imagine like arcing it really far back like this. And that way you kind of get this reversal. The character goes from kind of, this is not a terrible reversal, it's already kind of back there. Or the alternative could be you roll the back forward here. Maybe that makes more sense. A little bit more like this as they're coming through, and then the arms up. I'm terrible at drawing with a mouse. And that way you get a little bit of a reversal of the spine there. Actually, I think that makes more sense to do it that way. And because then you'll roll into this spine and then up to here to straighten it back up. Now, people had a lot of comments on this pose. I think there's a couple of things going on here. I think you need to raise the hips up a little bit. And I think you need a little bit of the hand blowing. Maybe it's not blowing through there. So the character's got their thumbs pointed almost back behind them. So turning the hands to be a little bit more like facing us this way, I think, would help some. And I think the fact that the character's torso is just pointing straight forward, and so is the hips, while the pelvis, while the front leg is forward. And so I think just getting a little bit of twist in that spine would help as well. So just play around with that pose and just get them ending on a slightly cleaner pose. So overall, I think this one has improved a lot. Like you've really worked on this one to get this one working much better. I think your energy's working better here. I think this push can still use a little work, like as the foot comes off the ground, to get it to feel like it's really pushing against the ground. But overall, you got a lot of good stuff happening there now. So good work. And it really is just effort that's showing in a lot of these pieces. So let's get this little walk underneath here. It's Melanie. So, Melanie, I think the hip shifts are going to help you a lot, especially as the feet are changing and they go under here, just getting this sort of this back and forth of the hips to release the feet. You get a decent amount of foot sliding going on there. It worries me that maybe you're moving the master control, but maybe not. It may just be how that's set up. I actually like your poses a lot, but yeah, it's just got a little bit of some hard hits. Like even the down hits hard. Like it goes straight down and just sort of smacks a wall when it dunk. Feel that? Like, and so I think just playing around with a little bit of the overshoot, a little bit of the curves to get those changes feeling a little more subtle would really help. And you also kind of have some drifting in the animation, like that section right through here, like as he's pulling his or her right leg through. Kind of feels like we're just kind of hanging out in that pose a little while. I'm not really sure exactly what we're doing there. Like, and so either, you know, have the character feel like they're kind of just hovering out, not hovering, just kind of bobbling there, like kind of hanging out in there, trying to reshift their weight, or move through that faster. But what you don't want is it to feel like that we're just sort of drifting between two keyframes. So I think overall you need a little bit more motion in the arms and spine as a reaction to the hip movement. So let's move on. I think this video may end up being a little long, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and try to get through all of them in this one. So, okay, Nick, let's see what we got. There we go. Alright, this is actually looking pretty good. A couple of little things, there's some hitchiness, and so if we were to, let's look at this, let's look at what the spine is doing, or not the spine, let's look at the pelvis here. So watch what the pelvis is doing as it moves forward here. It's moving forward, moving forward, moving forward, and then it dips 2 frames and then pops back up, right? And so if we were to look at this character's hips, what we get is something like it pops up and then it does this really nice arc through here until it gets to right here, and then it does that. Right? And so I think that just cleaning up that arc, I think, is this one of the ones that people in the critique said it looked a little stop motion-y, and I think that that's part of it. Is stop motion feels that way because our spacing isn't perfect and our arcs aren't perfect in stop motion because it's just it was a really hard medium to make that happen. And so let's say you wanted this like nice even increase in your spacing, right? Stop motion sometimes, instead of that keyframe hitting right there, maybe it hits more like right there, and it just feels like there's a little bit of a hitch right there, right? And so just consistently, like that's a curve thing, like getting into your curves and really playing with your, and so we get a little bit of that there. So it pops big there and then slows down again. And I'm talking about your hands right now. So the hands pop off there and then slow down again. And so I think it's those little things that people are seeing that's feeling that way. I feel like you could shift the character's weight forward there a little bit more in this pose. So instead of like what you got there, like really like drag him back and get this sort of, you know, pose going on here. And then I think just sort of have a little bit more settle time in your overlap. I like your overlap here, but I think that the head could kind of overshoot and the spine could kind of overshoot. So instead of staying stiff, let's get a little bit of rolling forward here in it, right? And then the head as well, and then it can kind of settle back into that that position. Right now, it just kind of all dies down a little too quick. So overall, though, this is a really great start. I think you just have a little bit more polish to go before this one feels really good. So, okay, Shay. Let's see the revised version here. So let's go play through it once before we. Yeah, this is looking really good. You've put a lot of work into this. Everything that I have to say on this is very nitpicky. I feel like the arms still feel a little bit like they need to react to the upper body movement just a little bit. I don't want to take it out of this because I'll have to load again. So as the character shifts their weight there, right, really, it's kind of a hard shift. Maybe the arm, either dips down a little bit or something, or it sort of overshoots past that or something. So think of the pendulum. Think of the arms as a slightly more rigid version of the pendulum that is hooked to this torso. I also think in this pose, the character feels just a touch too far out of balance to this side. It's very, very slight, and I don't think you should shift the hips. What I think you may want to do is sort of roll the torso in just a little bit more to this side, right? And so you get just a little bit more of an arcing curve to it there. And then the only other little thing I notice is this, as she's kind of snaking that first leg out there, that feels a little even, like in the timing, it feels a little floaty. And then it feels a little floaty again right there on that last step that the left leg takes. So you feel like it kind of just feels like it drifts. So it feels like it needs to get to a point and kind of hit it, or I don't really know how to explain that. It's really like if we have let's say this motion happening over our 5 to 7 keyframes, right, or 5 to 7 frames, and the foot's moving from here to here over 5 to 7 frames. It's doing it in this arc, right? Well, we know that maybe we have it sort of ease out a little bit here and here, right? And so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go ahead and do 5. So we got, maybe we'll have that sort of timing, right? And so it changes so quickly from the ease in and out to this spacing here that it just feels like it has texture to it, right? But if this were happening over, let's say, 30 frames, right, and we just keep subdividing this more and more and more, we start to feel the consistency happening here, right? And it just feels a little too repetitive at times. And so, I know it's not all 30, but like we can just feel how like almost like mechanical or automated that transition feels. And so sometimes what you need is a little bit more of another, like let's say an ease in right through here as the character kind of settles the foot up there, and then I'm just kind of making this stuff up now. Maybe this section through here gets a little faster. And so you're making decisions about how the texture of that timing works, not just letting it drift over 30 frames. And so I don't necessarily know what the exact decision is that you need to make with this. Maybe it, the ease out like happens a little slower, like that way the foot's on the ground a little longer, and then the motion through the air is a little faster, but gets to the destination earlier. But it's just touching the toe there, and then you settle the foot in over a longer time. Like maybe that's what you're doing. I don't know. That's just something to play around with to keep it from being quite as floaty. And the same here. I just feel like it just kind of drifts over a little bit too many frames. Overall, though, trust me, this is the feedback you want to be getting, because that's a very subtle thing, and that means you've hit a lot of the important things pretty well. And so great work. I know I've seen you working your butt off on this, so that's why it looks good. So great work. Tanner, let's look at yours. Okay. So this one kind of has some timing issues. I think I would play around a little bit with how the character's timing is when it goes underneath the bar. Like, does it go a little faster? You got some nice overshoot and settle there. I think you could maybe even have it happen a little longer, but I feel like the spine feels a little stiff through that. And it doesn't feel like it really like unwinds or unrolls. It just feels like it kind of straightens back out. And so I think you could play around with that a little bit. Again, with the thing I was talking about with Shay just now, the foot kind of floaty, like you're kind of getting that a little bit here with this too. You feel it just kind of drifts over so many frames. And it's really hard. It's hard to do a slow motion without it getting floaty. And you really just have to sort of play around with the texture to get that to happen. So in this, you'll see sort of how the spine straightens out. It starts to straighten out before the hips do. So the spine kind of unrolls first, but the head is dragging behind. And so that just feels kind of weird to me. Like, really, I would think that the head would lead that motion if you're wanting the spine to straighten out before the hips start to raise, because then it feels like the head is kind of locking out and pulling the character forward, and that sort of in that theoretical energy sense, not necessarily the force. Like, nothing's not got a hold of the head and pulling it up, but it just kind of feels like the head would be leading that action, and since the head's curled forward there, it feels a little strange. I think that step's probably a little high on the foot. And yeah, I think you could settle into this just a little longer and get a little bit more looseness in the spine. So overall, that one's it's off to a good start. More than anything, it just needs to loosen up just a touch. And Taylor, I was really hoping you'd get that last pose in there. Like, it's such a cliffhanger almost. I think it's looking pretty good. I feel like the arc's a little strange. Like, if I were looking at it from the side. Let's say this is the bar the character is jumping over. They start off here, they go this way. Like, I expect the arc to feel kind of like this, and what it's feeling like to me is a little bit more like this. Does that make sense? Like, it goes straight up and then kind of sucks forward, like just sort of darts forward, and so cleaning that up just a touch. Some of that may not be the arc, it may be the timing. It feels like the let's clear this. Let me open the, it's a WMV. I think it'll open in QuickTime, but may not. Open with, will not. Will VLC play it and let me scrub? I don't remember. Looks like the answer is no. Okay. So I think it's the distance from when the character's contact pose to when the character's up and upside down, or not here, but like maybe a frame before that, feels a little too short of a distance. I'm sorry, not distance, like the spacing, the timing feels too short. I was hoping you had the Maya file in there. And so it feels like we kind of, feels like we're skipping a frame right after the character comes off the ground to me. So I think you just need another key pose in there to really, it's going to mess with your timing just a touch, but I think it'll help. So, and you really need to finish it up, like get the impact and get the character standing back up, because I think that's kind of the last little point of this that's missing. I like that you get the toe, the feet motion there feels really nice. Like just sort of how they feel like they kind of grind into the ground before they push back off. And so yeah, give me that's something I think you should look into for a revision later on, is just wrapping that up with the landing. And I'd love to see the Maya file of this so we can kind of frame by frame it and sort of take it apart. But overall, yeah, this is looking really nice. Keep up the good work, and I'm going to go ahead and end the video now. Oh, wait, no, I can't. I got one more. I got Damien. I forgot about this one out here. Okay. There we go. So I think I said most of my comments in class the other day, but I'll go ahead and go through them again here. So I think the biggest things I noticed is I think that the hand stays on the bar just a little too long, and so by the time it actually comes off, almost most of the character's upper torso is way ahead of that hand, and so it feels like he's having to make an effort to keep it back there that far. And so just have it come off the bar a little earlier. Just have it release a little earlier. There we go. Yep. And then the other thing I would be saying is sort of the foot. I don't know, there's something going on in the feet, and it feels like maybe they're staying a little flat in their path as they travel. No, it's not. It's actually looking pretty good. There's a little bit of sliding going on the feet, right in there. I think that's some of this rig. And I think when the character gets to their standing position, there's kind of an impact there. It kind of like slams his hips into a wall. So I think getting a little bit of overshoot in the hips and sort of a settle back in would really help. So overall, this is looking good. Just needs a little bit more work on some of those things. This hand pose, it's sort of a coincidence that I landed there, but that hand pose feels kind of strange to me too. So it's not really the hand, almost more like how the wrist is twisted. So okay, cool. So keep up the good work, y'all. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.